the chosen one. Be brave, Professor. Be brave like my mother.
How do you feel?
Excellent. Really excellent.
Hey everyone, welcome to Hogwarts, a podcast. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Hogwarts, a podcast. We are covering Chapter 9, The Half-Blood Prince. Mollie is with us.
Hello, everybody.
It's a really interesting chapter. We get into our new NEWT level classes. We first learn what classes everybody's taking, particularly Hermione and Harry. We get the details on. A little bit of Neville, too. And then we get some looks at some classes. We get Snape's first Defense Against the Dark Arts lesson and Slughorn's first Potions lesson. So we'll kind of dive into those as well. But Mollie, we start out with just a little intro into the chapter with Hermione being very diplomatic on what her opinions on Draco is, because obviously Harry's very interested in getting her 2 cents on what he heard in the compartment. And I feel like my image of this scene is literally they're waiting for her to come down from the girls' dormitory, and then they just ambush her from both sides. And Harry's like, oh, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? And then Ron's just like, but it could be this, right?
Yeah.
And I love the way Hermione just kind of goes, well, that is like Draco to kind of boost his profile. But it is a big lie to tell. Kind of placating both of them at the same time.
It's very, like, moderate road type, like, way to take.
Very middle of the road. And then she gets an out because she sees a student passing with an illegal object from Weasley's Wizard Wheezes, the fanged frisbee, which she confiscates. And then Ron claims said frisbee for his own. He's like, oh, I always wanted one of these. Great. And then we get Lavender, a Lavender Brown mention.
Oh, she's into it. She's all about Ron. She's got those eyes going for him.
She laughs tremendously at this, I guess, funny gesture of him claiming the illegal object when he's a prefect. But just an interesting note that they note that Lavender is giving Ron a lot of attention.
Yeah, she's catching the Ron fever.
Do you catch Ron fever? Let us know in the comments.
Yeah.
We get down to the to breakfast, and we find out that McGonagall is going to go around distributing class schedules, which is a little bit more of a process for the 6th years because she's got to correlate that with OWL scores. And we learn that Hermione, shockingly, is approved for all of her classes. She's taking Charms, Transfiguration, Defense Against the Dark Arts, Arithmancy, Ancient Runes, Herbology, and Potions. 7 classes.
That's a lot.
That is a lot of classes, especially for this advanced level of study. So, quite a workload for Hermione. Neville. We do get a Neville mention here, and we learn a little bit more about A, his OWLs, and B, just his general mindset, I guess you'd say. He did get an outstanding in Herbology, which McGonagall notes like, oh, Professor Sprout's going to be really thrilled to see you back with an outstanding.
Absolutely. Like, not surprising for Neville.
Clearly, this is his avenue of like, you're really good at this.
Mm-hmm.
Keep doing it. He did get an exceeds expectations in Defense Against the Dark Arts. Good for him. I think that's a direct correlation to the DA.
Absolutely.
I think that really increases confidence in that subject. And an exceeds expectations that's a good grade. Yep. That's a solid grade. He did get an acceptable in Transfiguration, which McGonagall notes, hey, I'm actually really pleased with this grade. I think you did really good to get this grade, but it doesn't get you into my NEWT level course. Good job. Great. I'm proud of you. Not good enough. Which I think McGonagall delivers that news in a really good way.
Oh, she does, yeah.
And then we also find out he got an exceeds expectation in Charms, which, again, I'm like, okay, Neville, all right. You're doing a little bit better than I think people gave you credit for.
Absolutely.
Her offer is, I know you can't do Transfiguration, but you got an exceeds expectations here. You should really do Charms. Go do it.
Yeah.
And Neville mentions that his grandmother's not a big fan of Charms. She considers it, quote, a soft subject, which we can break into that if we really want to, but that's fine.
Dan, I gotta ask you, how do you feel about that, knowing that your favorite professor teaches that class?
Yeah, okay, so here's the thing. All right, fair enough. Fair question. Yes, Flitwick teaches charms, and he is my favorite, one of my favorite teachers. He's my head of house, Ravenclaw.
Right.
Soft subject, say that to his face, I guess? Like, really? I disagree, and I think charms, I think most would agree, is probably the most real-world applicable on a daily basis that you're gonna use it
Right.
all the time.
Yeah.
It's cool. I'll give you that. Are you gonna transfigure something every single day? Probably not. Defense against the dark arts? Hopefully not.
Yeah.
Potions, I guess, maybe depending on what you're considering a potion. And then herbology, I guess, if you have a really big garden and you're into gardening, cool.
Right.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know. Charms is something you'll probably use. I mean, we've seen Mollie Weasley in the Burrow use charms like everywhere all the time.
She's like a pro with charms.
Yeah. I don't really agree here that it's a soft subject. However, neither does McGonagall, because she calls the grandmother out and she's like, Neville, I'm signing you up for charms. I'll call your grandmother and remind her that just because she failed her charms OWL doesn't mean it's a bad subject. Can we hear that phone call? Because I would love to hear that phone call.
I would too.
Because the vibe I get of his grandmother, these are two alpha females.
100, like older alpha females.
Yeah.
Like something from like the Golden Girls.
That's actually a great poll. I think that's a great poll and very accurate. For those of our younger audiences, Google the Golden Girls, and I think that's a very apt poll.
Bunch of sassy old ladies. I love it.
Not afraid to say what they think.
Nope.
And mean what they say. So I just thought it was a really cool interaction between Neville and McGonagall there. I think you see a little bit more of the caring side of her teaching, because we've seen a lot of the aggressive side of her teaching, and a lot of it pointed towards Neville. And here you see, like, she cares.
Oh, absolutely.
And she wants him to succeed, and she points him in the direction of, like, you can do well here, go here.
Right.
Forget what anybody else says.
Mm-hmm.
Take your own path.
Right.
So I think that's a really cool moment from her. We do get a little side tangent about Trelawney and Firenze are both teaching divination this year. They're splitting classes. Trelawney happens to be taking the 6th years. So that's an interesting kind of little side note.
I thought it was interesting too that that Pavarti was a little disappointed to not have Trelawney. I mean, I get that she probably wants to stare at Firenze, but like she was always like good buddy old pals with Trelawney.
Yeah, and I think she still is. It's the other part that you mentioned.
Yeah.
That crush-like sensation. Mm-hmm. Harry, we get his class load, and he's taking Charms, Defense Against the Dark Arts, Herbology, Transfiguration, which McGonagall is very pleased about. And now that Slughorn is teaching potions, he is able to go that pathway. Because he got an exceeds expectations, Slughorn will accept that. I do like how McGonagall was like, wow, you got an exceeds expectations in Transfiguration. Impressive. Another little positive, like, good job, Potter. Ron essentially gets cleared for the same classes as Harry. And his reaction is, since Harry and Ron are doing 5 classes and Hermione's got 7, he's like, more free periods. We don't have class after this, and then we get a break. And Hermione's like, you need that time to study. Right. Our workload will be increased.
Exactly.
Like, there's a reason we're allowed to drop classes here. We get the comment on the free periods. And then we get McGonagall also saying to Harry, oh, by the way, there's 20 names down for Quidditch practice. Like, if we already know that trouble that Harry has gone through, and past captains, Oliver Wood and Angelina Johnson, about trying to schedule Quidditch practice. We've gotten a lot of, banter and back and forth about that around DA lessons and about all kinds of things. So it's interesting that they go, hey, more free periods, yay. And then right after that, McGonagall's like, oh, by the way, there's 20 names down for Quidditch practice.
Right.
You got to figure this out. Figure out when your first tryout is going to be and then go from there. Mm-hmm. Okay, Harry. you don't have as much free time as Ron, clearly. No. Once Harry returns during one of his breaks to the Gryffindor common room, he encounters Katie Bell, who's in her 7th year now, and the only one left from his original Quidditch team that he joined back in his first year. And she warns him to not pick old faces or friends just because. So have a reason for picking them. Don't pick me because you know me. There might be someone better. You never know. And Ron gets super uncomfortable at this bit of advice from Katie. And it was like, ooh, he can pick friends though, right? Like, he can pick friends. I'm his friend. So I should be on the team, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, he gets a little uncomfortable with that.
Yeah. I like Katie's advice, though.
It's the right advice.
It is.
Although, okay, it is coming from someone who's most likely going to be on the team.
Right.
I mean, all things aside, it's a wonderful comment for her to make.
Right.
But I think she's pretty comfortable in the fact that she's been on it for 6 years.
Yeah.
She's now a 7th year student. Like, she's probably good.
Oh, yeah. She'll make it.
That being said, Harry joined, like, his first year.
Yeah.
Like, maybe there's some Victor Crumb prodigy coming in.
Yeah, you never know.
Who could be, mind-blowingly good at Quidditch. However, they've also said when Harry joined that there hasn't been, like, a first-year seeker or a seeker that young in, like, centuries or whatever.
Right.
So, you never know. But, hey, maybe there is some Harry Potter Victor Crumb prodigy out there that we don't know about.
Yeah.
Also, it's interesting from Katie Bell's perspective. Like, you're the 7th year student. You've been on the team for 6 years. Mm-hmm. And you don't get the Quidditch captain? Are you a little resentful?
Right.
She says she figured Harry got it.
Yeah.
Or would get it. But are you a little resentful? You've been on the team for 6 years and you're a 7th year student.
I think there's probably a part of her that's disappointed, but at the same time too, last year it was so horrendous that maybe she's like welcoming a break from being the Quidditch captain.
That's true. Angelina had
Yeah.
just a terrible time. And Wood always had struggles that he had
Right.
to overcome.
Right. Like maybe she's happy she doesn't have to deal
Maybe
with
she's like, oh, thank goodness, like he can deal
Right.
with all of this.
Right.
Because Harry doesn't have enough to deal with, so we'll just throw another thing on his plate.
For sure.
I was just wondering, like, if I was Katie Bell, I'd be like a little perturbed that I'm like,
Right.
put 6 years into this and
Yeah.
couldn't get a captaincy.
I mean, at the same time too, like, so what I do, I work in healthcare, I work in a clinic. We have clinic managers. Like, I wouldn't want to be a clinic manager. I wouldn't want to manage people's expectations and numbers and report to higher ups about how my clinic's doing. Like, I just want to be in the background. I just want to play.
That is fair. I was literally telling so I work at a school, and I was telling my athletic director, after watching him deal with, like, some issue,
Mm-hmm.
I went up to him afterwards. I'm like, I could not do your job. Like, I don't want to do that. Where you have to walk such a fine line between, like, you have to disagree with the person, but you have to disagree with them in just the right way so you don't really, like,
Exactly.
cause a bigger issue. I don't want that. I don't need that.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Maybe she's okay with that.
Probably. Yeah, that's a fair point. Fair point. So we get our first class. We get our first look at Professor Severus Snape as a Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher. And let me just set the stage, and then Molly, you can give me your 2 cents on what the class was like. We get a different decor in the room. It's very dark, candlelit, and there's portraits of pain, disfigurement, and grisly injuries on the wall. The class itself is non-verbal spells, which he says requires a great bit of concentration and mind power, which personally, briefly I'll give my 2 cents, it's a great teacher gimmick. of, I don't want my class to talk. And I am annoyed generally by, I'm speaking as Snape here, I'm generally annoyed by children. So this is a great way to make sure your class is quiet. Let's work on nonverbal spells, everybody. You can't be speaking. It's pretty hilarious. What do you think of just Snape's general first lesson?
I think, like, if we already thought Snape was bad enough as a potions teacher, I think he's going to make a terrible dark arts teacher.
Ooh, hot take. Why do you say that?
I just, first of all, I just cannot stand Snape as a teacher. I don't think he is a good teacher. I think that he sets everybody up for failure, and that drives me insane. Like, teachers like should be supportive but realistic, but it's just, I feel like he's always out to get everybody, whether it is Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, you know, Ravenclaw. You know, he likes the Slytherins, but I cannot stand him as a teacher.
So is there any difference in Snape's defense against the dark arts lesson versus his potion lessons that you've noticed? Or is it pretty much just the same general?
I mean, it correlates for sure, but I feel like with Snape's vindictiveness, it's a lot easier for him to be vindictive during a defense against the arts class than it would be through potions. Because with potions, he's not making a potion all the time that's gonna, like, you know, hurt a kid in any way. With defense against the dark arts, there's jinxes, there's counter curses, there's all that stuff, just like he did, you know, he was gonna do to Harry.
That's true. He was going to use Harry as an example, because honestly, as a teacher, you're probably a little bit annoyed because if you think he didn't notice that most people are whispering these spells, not trying to do them non-verbally, you're wrong. He definitely noticed that. So he tries to make an example of Harry, and Harry, I will say, panics. I think he panics and he just goes into like a super defensive mode. And as soon as Snape pulls out his wand, he's like, Protego! Like,
Which makes
shield
sense for their history.
That's fair. Well, he just had a whole year of Snape invading his mind.
Right.
So he's used to like defending himself against Snape in a very direct manner. So when he shouts the spell, first of all, he shouts it. Okay, here's a question for you. Do you think Snape gets mad if he actually used the non-verbal spell to do it? Or Snape only got mad because he used words in the spell?
I think Snape would have been mad either way.
Because that's, I think, to your point, that would be the teacher. Like, okay, you did it non-verbally, goal accomplished.
I still think he would have been mad. Because he would have been outbested by Harry.
Harry Potter?
He can't stand Harry Potter.
Yeah.
He would have found something to nitpick him about.
Probably, yeah.
He's just one of those people. That's why I can't.
Clearly, you whispered that spell, Potter.
Right.
Like, yeah.
Like he's like that type of person that will always find that little tiny piece of lint on your shirt, even if you've done everything right. You know.
That's true. You're probably right.
Ugh.
Harry ends up getting detention for A, using words during the spell, thus knocking Snape back into his desk, and B, he then added onto it with some snark.
I loved that. I was like, yes.
To me, I'm like, Harry, you're 16. You could do better than like the little sir wordplay that you did. I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
I will give you this, Molly. I do agree with you that I think Snape could have done a better job teaching this lesson like he just says, oh, it's just concentration and mind power. That doesn't mean kids are going to know how to like, what do? Do you say the spell in your mind?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think of the spell's effects in your mind? Like, what exactly do you have to be doing to unlock this talent? He says not everybody can do it. It does take a greater level of ability, hence why it's a NEWT level course. But he doesn't really do a good job of explaining the mindset you have to be in specifically, or what you have to be thinking about, or how to execute said spell. He just says, concentrate, have the mind power to do it, and whatever.
Go for it.
It's not a really descriptive way to teach.
No. I feel like Snape is always doing that, like even in potions class. Read the book, figure it out. And like the thing with Snape is like I think the problem is too, Snape is very intelligent.
Hmm?
He's figured a lot of things out. And I think he expects everyone else to be the same way. And if you are not that way, then you're not on his level, you're stupid, you're an idiot. It's just, and I think that's the wrong way to be if you're a teacher.
That's a great point that you make, because he himself might be more apt to succeed in these types of situations, talented, whatever, however, which way you want to phrase it, that he has trouble teaching. It's like Michael Jordan
Right.
might not be a good coach because he's just like, well, do it like I did it.
Mm-hmm.
You're the best of all time. How am I supposed to do it like you did it?
Exactly.
You're really good at it. Where I think this might be where Harry becomes a better Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher, like we saw in the last book, because you saw him having to work at it. You saw him having to practice at it. And yes, he became very good, but he had to become very good by putting in effort to get there.
Mm-hmm.
So he knows the tricks. He knows where the failures come and how to avoid those, and like where the little missteps are, where where you might make a mistake and how to correct those, because he made the mistakes and he knows how to correct them.
Yeah.
Snape might not have made very many mistakes. He might have, and I don't know. I mean, we saw obviously in Snape's past, the few glimpses we've gotten, it's not like he was maybe stellar in everything. So I mean, he might have made a couple of mistakes, but it seems like there's some disconnect with the students as far as like, well, just do what I do.
Right.
Like, how hard is it to do that? Clearly, I've done it perfectly. We'll just do it perfectly.
Right.
And I don't think he knows how to like make that connection.
No, just because you're intelligent or you're good at something doesn't mean you're going to make a great teacher, a great coach.
Right.
So
You do have to find a way to explain it to someone who doesn't know already.
exactly.
Like, yeah. He does have an interesting speech to open up his class, though. And I will give you a little snippet of it. He says, "The dark arts are many, varied, ever-changing, and eternal. Fighting them is like fighting a many-headed monster, which, each time a neck is severed, sprouts a head even fiercer and cleverer than before. You are fighting that which is unfixed, mutating, indestructible." Harry sits here and listens to this speech, which admittedly is captivating, but he's viewing it as though Snape is adoring. He's loving of the dark arts. Harry views this as someone who loves the dark arts, describing the dark arts. And we get Hermione's 2 cents on it later. But before we get to Hermione's 2 cents, is this Harry's bias of Snape and him knowing a little bit more about Snape's history? Or do you think Snape is describing the dark arts in a adoring fashion?
I've been thinking about this since I read it, because I want to take Harry's side right away. I want to say that because I'm just already all hot and bothered about Snape and his teaching style in general.
Mm-hmm.
That he's adoring the dark arts and he appreciates like the dark art side of it, not necessarily the defense part of it. But, trying to take myself out of it and look at it objectively, it is a very passionate and well thought introduction to what the dark, Defense Against the Dark Arts are. It is basically explaining like, you don't know what to expect. You have to be ready. You have to be ready for anything and everything. You're basically going to have to be brave.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard for me to pick one way or the other because I'm trying to be objective about it. I'm trying to take the personal side out of it. But that piece of me, I'm just like, no, he loves the dark arts. Snape is all about it. He doesn't care about the defense part.
Yeah, when I read it, I think when I've read it, every time I've probably read it before, I've probably taken Harry's side.
Yeah.
This time I read it, and I'm like, huh, Harry, are you probably putting your own biases on this spin? And I think he's definitely doing it. Also, I don't think he's objectively looking at it. If you're the professor of Defense Against the Dark Arts, you should, in theory, be an expert in the dark arts and be like, not saying you have to practice them, but you best be familiar with them and you best know them and know the type of person who's practicing in them, so you understand where they're coming from, so you can thus protect yourself accordingly. So I think it's a speech we haven't gotten before from any of the previous Defense Against the Dark Arts teachers. To be fair, we don't know about Quirrell because we really didn't spend much time in Quirrell's class.
No.
Lockhart was a joke. Umbridge was a joke. Lupin started out with the Boggarts, I believe was his first class, if I remember right, because that was a while ago. But Lupin didn't really have this whole big, like, spiel before he started the class. Just like, hey, I don't want to say, like, let's have fun with it, but his was maybe a more lighthearted yet appropriate class, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And Moody / Barty Crouch, he did kind of talk about the dark arts in kind of more of his was more of an aggressive fashion. And I don't know if that was Barty Crouch or him playing the role as Moody about, like, you best be prepared for what the dark arts are. And, unforgivable curse, unforgivable curse, unforgivable curse.
I'm sure it was a lot of mishmashing between those two. Like, I am Barty Crouch, but I am also Moody, Alistair Moody.
It's interesting that the two views of the dark arts that you get, and in a more, I don't want to say realistic point of view or darker view, are from Death Eaters.
Yeah.
Former or otherwise. That are just like, these are what the dark arts are. Like Lupin, okay, obviously member of the Order of the Phoenix. He's aware of individuals and what they can do. He's a werewolf, so there's that aspect of, like,
Yeah.
And his class was focused a lot on dark creatures. That's what he knew.
Right.
So that's where he kind of, like, went with it, which is fine, and that was appropriate, and that was a good class. But from Barty Crouch Jr. and Snape, you get a very different view of what the dark arts are. Here's what they really are, and here's how to defend yourself against them.
Right.
I disagree with Barty Crouch Jr. putting kids under unforgivable curses.
I would say that's a little,
Yeah, not a fan of that.
Yeah.
But I get what he was trying to do. I don't know. It's just an interesting kind of take from Snape's Defense Against the Dark Arts class. Hermione's 2 cents on what we're just discussing is, Harry, he kind of reminded me of you.
I hated that. I hated that so much. I feel
because
so,
it's right.
I feel so fired up about it. I just hate that she correlated that because I just don't think Harry and Snape have the same demeanor.
Okay. But do they have the same point?
I think that they have a similar point in terms of you have to respect the dark arts and what they bring. But I don't think Harry, when he gave his speech, was, like, overly fascinated with the dark arts. I think he was being more realistic in terms of... I'm probably walking myself right into a trap, Dan.
I'm not smiling because I have a counterpoint, Molly. Maybe, sort of.
I think he was looking at it more from the reality of the situation of what he's experienced. And where I think Snape had more of this, like, again, I'm probably putting a spin on it from Harry's perspective of I just don't like Snape. Where Snape just seemed very like, the dark arts.
I think I'm smiling because my point is really, I think Snape is more verbose than Harry. He's using different, more elaborate words in his spiel. Like,
it's not what you say, it's how you say it, Dan.
It's fine. They're saying the same thing. They are saying the same general thing of like, hey, these are formidable.
Right.
You can't mess around with this. They're always going to be there. They're always going to be a threat. That's what they're both saying. One's just saying it in a more elaborate way. And that person is Snape.
Right.
Than Harry, who's more blunt, more to the point, more direct. Using more, I guess, relatable terminology of like, you have to use your brain, you have to use your guts. So I liked Hermione's little pickup. And Harry didn't love it, but he was like, wow, she thought enough about what I said to actually like commit it to memory.
Which I think is really cool.
It is cool. And he's like, well, I'm not going to argue that. So I'll just back off.
Man, I feel like I've never gotten this fired up.
I know, you're bringing hot takes on Snape's Defense Against the Dark Arts lesson.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it, though. We do get a little bit of a message that Albus's first lesson will be this Saturday, which kind of puts a wrench into Snape's detention already. So that's awesome. But then we get to another class. Let's see if Molly gets as fired up about this class. We get Professor Slughorn's first potions lesson. And there's a lot going on here. We learned that only 12 people are taking the class, which means only 12 people either gotten exceeds expectations or want to take potions. I guess we should put it that way. It's not meaning that only 12 people got the required grade. It's got the required grade and want to continue in it.
Right.
So there's that caveat. So we can't just say Snape's a bad teacher, because I know that's where you're going, Molly.
I was just about to say, which then again, maybe people don't want to take it because Snape sucks at teaching.
I will give you that they might not want to take it because they had bad experiences in his class and are like done with the subject. That could be true. That could be very true. I will give you that.
The teachers have a big influence, I feel like, on how much you like classes. Like, I loved chemistry because of one of my teachers, because he was an amazing teacher.
Oh, that's a fair point. That's a fair point.
And I think it could have easily gone another way had I not had a good teacher that explained things and took the time to really care and answer questions.
No, that's a fair point. I can't argue that. Teachers do influence how you view a subject or an environment or whatever else. So I'll give you that. But regardless, only 12 people are taking this class, so it's not very many. And we get 4 Slytherins, 4 Ravenclaws, 1 Hufflepuff, and 3 Gryffindors. Take for that what you want. I don't know who the 4 Slytherins are, because we get a Draco, obviously. We get Blaze, and we get specifically that Crabbe and Goyle are not taking this class. So
Yeah.
I don't know who the other 2 are, but whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, side note, I gotta say, I don't know what JK has against Horace Slughorn, but if you've been paying attention at all, anytime Slughorn is in the vicinity of this book, she mentions how large he is multiple times.
Yeah.
I counted 3 times before I honestly stopped counting. It might have been more times in this book, but just in like the couple of pages where he walks into the room, she mentions how large he is like 3 times.
Yeah. It's kind of like if you've seen Alice in Wonderland, like the walrus.
Yes.
That's a very that's the image I get. Like,
Well, because she always
Slughorn.
pairs it with the walrus mustache.
Right.
So she's like putting that in your
Yeah.
head, you know? Yeah.
Which is funny because in the movie, like, I don't feel that way about Slughorn because of the actor.
He's a relatively normal sized actor.
Right.
Not like an overly large.
Right. Man.
By the way,
yeah.
I love the actor who plays Slughorn
I
in the
love him
movie.
so
He is
much.
so good.
He's so talented.
He delivers so many of these Slughorn lines so well.
Yeah.
Especially this class. They do this class pretty much verbatim in the movie, and it comes off really well.
Mm-hmm.
So this is another one of those bombastic first lessons, okay, where you get a lot of cool stuff happening in it. So we'll break down. Harry notices that there are cauldrons on each table. And obviously they break up normally. 4 Slytherins to a table, 4 Ravenclaws to a table, and then the 3 Gryffindor and a Hufflepuff to the other one. And there's a cauldron on each table, and and Slughorn's desk. We'll get to the familiar stuff first before we get to some new stuff. The Slytherin table has a cauldron full of Veritaserum. The Ravenclaw table has a cauldron of Polyjuice Potion. Now, we get to the first new one. Slughorn's desk has a potion in it, and it, we find out, is Felix Felicis. Felices? I feel like they pronounce it Felices,
Yeah.
but I'm reading it, and it looks Felicis. Felix Felicis is what it looks like to me.
Yeah.
Like
Same.
reading it.
Yeah.
Felicis is how they spell it. Felicis.
Felicis. That's how I read it.
That's weird. That's weird to me.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's liquid luck. So if taken, which I love how they answer this right off the bat, because this could have been a massive loophole in this whole thing. But if taken in excess, giddiness, recklessness, and dangerous overconfidence becomes a problem. Slughorn says he's taken it twice in his life, once at 24 and once at 57, and they were the two best days of his entire life. Great. Or two perfect days. Two perfect days, he says. It is banned in sports, exams, and elections. Things that could alter the course of an event or whatever. So it's banned in those circumstances. My thing is, and I guess Slughorn kind of notes it a bit, but if taken in excess, what is the limit on excess? Like, where do you think that line is? If he took it twice in his entire life, and they were 33 years apart, like, what's the excess?
Yeah.
Could you take it once a year?
Maybe even still. That's too much.
Would that be too much?
Yeah.
Once a year over 30 years.
Or I mean, maybe you just kind of have to know your limits as a person. Maybe like he has more of an addictive personality. You want to take that path with it, and if he, took it once a year, maybe it would turn into something more and more and more.
I mean, the temptation has got to be there. Because if you
Right.
take it and you have a perfect day, everything goes your way. Like,
Why? Yeah, you'd want to take it
you,
every single day.
yeah, you'd want to take it more often. And
Yeah.
I do like how this particular potion has that caveat to it of like, okay, if this is in your system too much, too often, that luck will wear thin and not work for you the same way, because dangerous overconfidence, recklessness, well, you're going to be trying
Right.
stuff that you
Right.
shouldn't be trying.
Exactly.
And it's like, I'm assuming deaths have occurred,
Right.
accidents have occurred,
Right.
whatever.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's the potion doing that, or I wonder if the potion itself has limits of like, look, I'm not making you lucky in everything you do, just in a couple of things. So
Yeah.
don't get like crazy with this.
It's almost like magic self-regulating itself.
Kinda. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's like, whoa, I don't know that you should be able to do that.
Right.
Hold up.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
I don't know. I have some questions with liquid luck of just like what exactly the boundaries are on this.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to know.
The cauldron that's on the Gryffindor / Ernie Macmillan table is Amortentia, which Hermione lovely tells us it's the most powerful love potion in the world and smells differently to each person. And Slughorn notes that, by the way, this is the most dangerous potion in the room. And, Malfoy and some of the Slytherins, and I'm sure other people, he just points to the Slytherins, kind of smirk and laugh at the idea of a love potion being the most dangerous potion in the room. When you got Polyjuice, you got Veritaserum, and you got Liquid Luck, who we just said, like, it's a problem if you take it too much. But he says, obsessive love is dangerous. So that's his kind of qualification on it. And Harry notes as he sits down at the table that there's a, quote, seductive smell about it.
Yeah.
And he notes treacle tart, a woody broomstick handle, and a flower smell that he can't quite place, but he feels like it was definitely at the Burrow,
Yeah.
which is interesting.
Very interesting.
Hermione, when she's telling the whole class about what amortentia is, notes freshly mown grass, new parchment, and then she trails off and doesn't say the third thing,
Yeah.
which is also interesting in its own right.
Right.
And I believe in the movie it was spearmint toothpaste
Yeah.
was the third thing,
Yeah.
which is an interesting one. Hermione trying to maybe hide something in the class.
Mm-hmm.
Before we get into, Slughorn and what the rest of the lesson is, we get some new potions. What are your 2 cents on the new potions? And I think, given our conversations through these chapters in these books, Molly, I think amortentia is an interesting one to dive into.
Oh, yeah. I could see where, yeah, that's probably one of the most dangerous potions in there. Because obsessive love, like, that's not good for anybody.
No.
That's like stalker.
Yeah.
And like the person that's going to use that on someone, that's dangerous too, because you're basically hoodwinking somebody into liking you. And there's just so many emotions with that.
I don't think I like the idea of love potions.
I don't.
Because their whole existence is to trick someone into liking someone.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I like that idea.
No.
Like at all.
No.
Like,
absolutely not. I would not want someone to be in love with me without being truly in love with me.
like, okay, so this can get, and I think Slughorn is making it into like a more nefarious thing, like tricking someone into a marriage or to having a kid and then like
Yeah.
locking them into that, like a whole like extortion level event.
Oh, absolutely.
But I'm like, these are mass produced. Fred and George have them in their shop.
Yeah.
What are those for? Is it like I need a prom date? I'm just gonna use this one time, have a prom date, and then like, fine.
Yeah.
What are the
Complications and the implications of it.
Can you imagine if you found out you'd been given a love potion?
Yeah.
I'd be like, nah.
There's a lot that we could deep dive into this.
Yeah, and none of it's a super comfortable subject.
No.
It's a little sketchy,
Yeah.
I think.
It's almost like a roofie,
A little bit. Yeah, well, yes, because you're being drugged, essentially.
Yeah. 100%. It's disturbing.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't really like the idea of love potions.
Right. It's very much like almost like the Imperious Curse.
Are there like... So I know they're called love potions, but I wonder if there's like different strengths, because this one's the most powerful. Amortentia is the most powerful.
Right.
So does that mean like if you take Amortentia, you are like head over heels, like blinded completely by overwhelming love?
I would assume so.
Like you would jump off a cliff for somebody.
Right.
Versus like maybe the love potion at Fred and George's shop is more just like, oh, I kind of like you, or I'm just generally more attracted to you. I'm not like in love with you. I'm just like, oh, that person exists now.
Yeah. And who knows how long like that, that potion like wears out. Like
That's true too. It could be like a time thing.
right.
Like theirs could last for like 20 minutes. This might last for a month or
Right.
multiple or
Right.
whatever. That's true too.
Yeah. Maybe there's like a certain time frame to it.
So I guess if that was the case, let's say like the love potion wasn't like this deep binding, blinding thing, and it was just like, oh, this person now notices that I exist. Not even like, just like, oh, now you know I am in existence. Because, we've all been there too about like,
Oh yeah.
that person that we like them, they don't even know I am here.
Yeah.
What if it was just that, of just like, not even liking, not even like,
No.
no, still hard no
Still
against
hard
it?
no on love potions.
Okay.
I mean, you all know I love.
You
But
love. You
I
love love.
I love love.
Yep.
Yeah. No, absolutely not. I would want. I want. I feel like most people want that organic love, not a fake love.
Do you think there's like a potion cocktail at Madame Puttyfoot's during Valentine's Day where they like blend in like a love potion to like a little cocktail or something like that?
Maybe, but I feel like maybe Madame Puttyfoot would want to use it to like people to get people to like buy more tea.
Does she
And
put it into
get-
aerosol form and just spray it around
Maybe.
as a perfume in her shop?
And they'll stay there for like ever because
Maybe.
yeah.
Clearly, Harry didn't get a whiff of it, and Joe didn't get a whiff of it in the shop. But
No, I don't think that they did. I also totally would want to know everybody's smells. I'd be like, hold on. We need to go through the entire class, and everyone has to tell me what they smell.
oh, you'd put them all on blast.
Oh yeah,
All on blast.
yeah. I love that though. Like I like knowing what like different, like what people like and differences and stuff. So
I have some notes on the smells, and we can get into it later in our spoiler section.
yeah,
But I do have a question about them.
yeah.
So, after Hermione just basically goes off on her own monologue during all of these cauldron displays, Slughorn now becomes very impressed by Hermione, very interested, gives Gryffindor essentially 30 points, and stops the class and was like, Harry, a muggle-born student is the best in our year. I think I know, because he tries to like, wait, Hermione Granger, are you related to this Granger who did blah, 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 blah? And she's like, no, I'm muggle-born. He's like, wait a minute, is this the muggle-born Harry was talking about? And then Hermione is just like, oh, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Harry, for saying that unprompted.
Yeah.
And Ron is over there like, well, I would have said the same thing if he'd asked me.
Oh, Ron.
And then he gets shushed.
Yeah.
So,
What did they call him in the movie? Like Billaby?
they switch up every.
Willoughby?
I think every time it's a different name.
Is it? Yeah. Willoughby.
And we could talk a little bit about Slughorn during this class, and since you just went off on a rail on Snape and his Defense Against the Dark Arts
It
class,
took me a hot minute to like chill out from that.
well, I'm gonna get you ramped back up again because I'm literally gonna say, I'm gonna ask you, now that we've seen a Slughorn potion class, how are you comparing it to Snape's?
Oh, it's like worlds better.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How so? What makes it like so much different and better for you?
He's actually explaining things. He's not just like yelling at people and telling them that they're terrible all the time. He's not singling people out in terms of like being stupid. He shows favoritism, absolutely. And I feel like we've talked about this in the past. I think he enjoys finding people that are good at things. And he definitely does show some favoritism. But I feel like there's more to his lessons than just open your book, do this potion, good luck.
This was his first lesson, so naturally it has to be bombastic. He has to like prove a point, like,
Right.
I'm a good teacher, I'm a good potion maker, here's how, here's why.
Mm-hmm.
He does ultimately end up having them open their books and do the Drought of Living Death, which, by the way, great name for a potion. It's just that in itself is like here's the thing, do it.
Mm-hmm.
He also, like you said, does show them powerful potions. He explains the potions. It was kind of interesting how he did that. When they do open up the books, obviously Harry and Ron were not expecting to take this class, so he donates some supplies. He gives them some books from the cupboard. And Harry notices that there's writing and scribbling all over his book, including over the instructions. And he says it's almost like a whole page of black because the writing is in between the lines, so it's basically just all black down the page. Mm-hmm. So after he learns how to decipher these words, he notices that the instructions are working quite well, and Harry's annoyance at having to decipher the instructions are gone. So that's good. Harry ends up winning the little competition of who can make the best Drought of Living Death in the 1 hour that was left in class, thus winning a small vial of liquid luck. the thing I love about Slughorn's lessons is, or the lesson here, I should say, is he gave Gryffindor 30 points as a Slytherin. He was very cool on Draco, again, as a Slytherin. And Draco tried to get his favor with mentioning his, like, uncle or something like that. He does show favorites. Obviously, he was like, oh, Harry made this wonderful potion, and Harry this, and Harry that, and oh, you're just like your mother. She was so good. I don't want to say he's a different vibe.
He is a different vibe.
He is and he isn't, because we're just seeing it from a different point of view.
Yeah.
Because he's very cold to Draco.
Yeah.
I mean, not mean. He's not mean to Draco, whereas Snape is obviously mean to some students. Several students. Many students. Fine.
A lot of students.
A lot of students. So that's fair. I'll give you that as the change up, where Slughorn's maybe not aggressive towards people, but he can be cold.
Yeah.
He can be like, okay.
Dismissive, absolutely.
Yeah.
But at the same time, too, I feel like, so Harry doesn't have a book, he doesn't have scales, all that stuff. Like, Slughorn is like, and even with Ron,
Mm-hmm.
you know, he's like, hey, come get your stuff. Where I think that if that were Snape in that position, Snape would have been like,
Too bad you failed this lesson.
Idiots. Like,
yeah.
You know, you failed this lesson.
That's true.
You know, and I think it would have been that way whether it was Harry and Ron or not. You know? I think Slughorn, say if Draco was in that position, I still think that Slughorn would be like, come get your stuff. Like, participate in class. Where Snape would have showed favoritism to Draco, but say if it was a random Ravenclaw, I feel like Snape would be like, well, too bad.
Yep, you just auto fail this lesson and you can't possibly win, and done.
Right.
Right. So yeah, I will give you Slughorn's a little bit more, dare I say, like the normal teacher.
Yeah.
Of just like, okay, the goal is the lesson and learning the lesson.
Yeah.
Not like proving a point.
He wants to find the best, and he wants to find the best in people.
Right.
And he wants to bring those people into his circle, obviously, and he shows them favoritism. But, and he can be dismissive and cold.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not like he's completely turning everybody away.
Right. It's interesting seeing a potions professor from this point of view, where it's like, oh, now we're getting showered upon with love and adoration instead of the exact opposite. I want to almost read this book from Draco's point of view, because it would be interesting. It'd be interesting to see his point of view on Slughorn and be like, oh, this is interesting now, having a teacher completely ignore me and wanting nothing to do with me and all that kind of stuff. It'd be interesting.
It would be.
So we get post lessons now. They're having dinner at the Great Hall, and Harry notices a scent of flower near him that he remembers now, and he turns and it's Ginny.
Interesting.
It is interesting. Ginny pops in because she's not happy about hearing that Harry's taking direction from someone else's writing in a book.
That's fair.
It is fair, and Harry does note, like, I see where this is going. Let me try to stop this now.
Yeah.
Hermione is also suspicious about this book, although not for the same reasons. Hers are a little bit more vain in that Harry beat her in a lesson, and she's not happy about it because she made a good potion.
Oh,
like, Slughorn notes, like, you know, that's actually a pretty good potion. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. Mm-hmm. And then Harry has the perfect potion. Hermione's not pleased about being bested in that subject. Defense Against the Dark Arts, she'll let him have that one. This one is hers. So she tries to find out if something is wrong with the book or something's abnormal with the book. And she's like, I think it's just a textbook. I think someone just wrote in a textbook. Mm-hmm. Gives it back to Harry, or Harry goes to grab it back, drops. And we find out that this book is the property of the Half-Blood Prince.
Boom.
Chapter. And we get the book name. Yay! Chapter 9, book name, drop. So that pretty much wraps up the non-spoiler. We'll head to the spoiler section after the break sound, where we got a couple of interesting conversations to have. So join us for that. We will be right back. Before we get to our break sound, I'd like to acknowledge our friend Andy, who helps us produce our intros and our break sounds. If you want to hear more of Andy's work and like Formula One racing, check out the Outlap F1 podcast. It's your one-stop shop for Formula One news, insights, race previews, and reviews. You can find them wherever you listen to podcasts, and they even have a YouTube page. So check out Andy, Cody, John, James, and Deanna, and join them on the Outlap.
Where is he? Where's my 1-1?
All right, we are back with the spoiler section of Chapter 9, The Half-Blood Prince. Before we get to that Half-Blood Prince bit,
Yes.
which we will discuss, let's double back on the love potion thing, because there's a couple spoilers in there that aren't even really spoilers, because they kind of give it away at the end of this chapter.
They do.
The flowery scent at the burrow, he then ties directly to Ginny.
Yep.
And here's my question to you, Molly. Is, can you be in love and not know it?
I mean, possibly.
So Harry, in this love potion, where it's supposed to be the things you love most, which apparently Harry's favorite food is treacle tart.
I guess so.
Apparently. The broomstick handle makes a lot of sense.
Right.
So the flowery scent then is equal to a treacle tart and the broomstick handle.
Yeah.
So he obviously feels very strongly about it,
Yeah.
but he doesn't. I mean, there's been hints in this book.
Yeah.
Already. There's been hints in this book already where it's like Harry will comment on the long flowing hair bouncing out of the room, or or just her energy, or a joke that makes him laugh.
Right.
Or like little things like that he'll note, but he doesn't think twice about it ever.
Right.
So it's like, and granted, he's got a lot on his plate.
Mm-hmm.
That's fair. But he's starting to notice more and more things about Ginny that make him happy.
Mm-hmm.
He's just not putting it together yet.
I don't think so. Yeah. I think it's just he's distracted by a lot of things at the moment.
Like even in the train, he's like, "Oh, Ginny, you want to go find a compartment?" She's like, "No, I gotta go see Dean." And he felt like, okay,
Yeah.
I guess that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's slowly creeping in.
Because, I mean, here's the thing, though. I mean, a lot of stuff going on. You're a 16-year-old boy. You're telling me, and you just had a whole book on him being overwhelmed by the beauty of Cho.
Yeah.
You're a 16-year-old boy, and you're noticing this, by all accounts, cute girl who's in your presence all the summer, who's at least, back a couple of years ago was like all about you.
Yeah.
All the time. But now she's like floating around and she's in your presence and you're noticing she's good at Quidditch, which was an attraction to Cho. I'm like you're telling me there's like nothing in him that's just like, oh wait, I like her. And not just like her as like, I like having her around me, but like, I like her.
I think that there is, but I wonder too if he's repressing it a little bit because it is Ron's sister.
Mm.
And she's, a year younger. So
It's getting less and less important now, though, as we get older.
yeah.
Like, I get that there's differences between like 11 and 10 and
Right.
12 and 11. But now you're like 16, 15, 17, 16.
Right. But it just in terms of like, oh, that's still Ron's little sister. Like,
Do you think it's subconscious? Like, just him subconsciously is like, well, that can't be.
yeah.
Like, whatever. That's not like,
I think it's like a sub.
I just like her because she's a cool person.
Right. She
And
smells
that's it.
kind of good.
Like, there's nothing like
Yeah.
deeper in there.
Right.
Even though clearly there is, because he's smelling her perfume or whatever
Yeah.
in a love potion.
Right.
Do you think so we don't get the whole next step of this, obviously. This is a spoiler section, so we know that they end up obviously together. But like, it's interesting because I don't remember specifics in this book. Like, I don't know what happens next chapter or whatever off the top of my head. But like, at what point does he start like, wait a minute, I smelled her perfume in a love potion. Now I know it's hers. Oh,
I think
You know what I
think
mean?
This is the start of him like putting two and two together.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's just a slow burn.
It's a very slow burn, really.
You know?
But I don't know. My question was, can you be in love and just not know it?
Yeah, it's a hard question because I think you can be attracted to somebody, but maybe there's just something holding you back from that attraction, like fully committing to that attraction.
I think he definitely doesn't acknowledge the attraction.
Yeah.
By the way, this whole thing is played out really interestingly in the movie. And I personally absolutely love the scene because, again, we are talking about, 16-year-old boys here. So they are obviously having these types of feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But they're also still children.
Yeah.
So they're not really good at fleshing out these feelings. Like, they're not good at like communicating these feelings. They're not good at really understanding them yet.
Right.
So I personally love the conversation in the movie. That does not happen in the book, to my knowledge. I mean, I'd be surprised if we get there in a couple of chapters. But to my knowledge, it's only a movie thing. Where Ron and Harry are in their dorm.
Mm-hmm.
And Ron's like, what does Dean see in my sister?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can't believe that. What does he see in her? And Harry's like, well, she's pretty. What do you mean she's pretty? She's got nice skin.
Yeah.
like,
which sounds kind of like psychopathic.
It
when
kind
you
of-
think about it.
it's this awkward comment that's really like not at all what he's
Right.
thinking or feeling, but that's the only way he knows how to communicate it. And it is an awkward situation because it's his sister.
Right.
And I just found it very funny because I'm like,
Yeah.
I have probably said something that idiotic when I was around that age.
Right.
And that's how a lot of boys that age probably
Right.
communicate, like how that could show up in a love potion and you just not be completely aware of it. Hermione is aware of it.
Oh yeah.
Hermione was like, oh, freshly grown, freshly mown grass, new parchment, and
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
She's very acutely aware of it.
Right. And my curiousness with that is maybe that was her, because her and Ron end up together.
Mhm.
I wonder if that was her first inclination of like, oh, I think I'm attracted to him like more than I thought I was.
Okay, so that's a good point. Harry's not making that realization here.
Right.
Do you think Hermione knows ahead of time what this is? Or to your just point right there, do you think she thinks it and then makes the quick connection like, oh no.
Yeah. I mean, it could be a little bit of both. Could be a little bit of both in there. But at the same time too, like I hate to like, put differences on boys and girls and all of that stuff, but I think at that age, like obviously I was never a teenage boy, but like I get where boys are like, oh, super attractive,
Mm-hmm.
But I think girls are a little bit more emotionally intelligent and aware of stuff like that before boys are. I could be wrong, but
No, I mean, I will speak for myself and only myself here. I knew I was attracted to someone at 16.
yeah.
But what I was terrible at was picking up signals. So I get Harry.
Yeah.
Because looking back on it now as an adult, I'm like, oh, this girl was definitely into me and I had no idea.
Right.
Or, that comment that she made to me, that was her flirting or that was her doing this. And I was like way over my head. I was like,
Right.
woof, nope.
Yeah.
And all I knew was like, she's pretty. I like her. It was very
Right.
rudimentary, dumb.
Right.
So, I mean, that's where I think a lot of the stereotypes come from.
Yeah.
Is girls are probably thinking 3 steps ahead and guys are still on step 1.
Right.
And it's just like,
Right.
you have to wait for them to catch up a little bit. In some circumstances, not all. Yeah.
And I will fully admit, sometimes as a woman, we're not the best at like, oh yeah, if I put this subtle hint in here, he'll pick up on it. Like, probably not. Like, I feel like with men, you have to be a little bit more like, hey, I like you.
Hey, guys like that too, for the record. Yeah, we enjoy not having to figure out a whole escape room's worth of puzzles just to go out on a date. No, I'm kidding. It is what it is. Sometimes guys do not pick up on the subtle hints that ladies drop.
That we are guilty of.
Really, it was book 4, all the way back to the Yule Ball.
Yeah.
You starting to change now about like relationships are mattering. The characters are starting to mature a little bit, and other things are starting to pique their interest, if you will. So now you're just getting that a little bit more. But yeah, it was just interesting to get the kind of love potion interaction, and I think it was a good device for her to put in here about like, hey, here's some other things happening. Here's your, B, C, and D story along with the overarching like big story.
Right.
I think it was a good way for her to do it. The other thing she drops in this book is, or in this chapter, is the Half-Blood Prince. Mm-hmm. We finally get our book title, obviously. So, spoiler section. We're just going to throw that out there. Snape. But you can give your 2 cents on Half-Blood Prince and Snape and all of that entails. My 2 cents that I get from this, or I guess the most interesting thing about this for me, is for a guy who's in Slytherin, for a guy who's potentially adoring of the dark arts, for a guy who's a Death Eater, and who has followed closely Voldy. He owns being a half-blood.
Yeah, he does.
And I think that's an interesting trait. It's an interesting characteristic. And I don't know that he picks this because it's, something to throw off the scent of people. Like if someone finds this book, they're like, oh, Half-Blood, just throw them off the scent of who this could possibly be.
Yeah.
Or if he does it because he's like, no, I am a half-blood. I'm cool with that. And obviously Prince is his mother's maiden name. So he wants to own more of his mother's side of the lineage, not his abusive father.
Right.
Which is more the psychology of Snape and more what goes into him as a human being and where he's at now and what got him there. I just think it's stupid. It's a little 3-word title, self-given title, but I think there's a lot there to kind of pick at.
Oh, absolutely.
So, what are your 2 cents on the Half-Blood Prince name, and then just in general?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little weird that it is half-blood, when it is coming from somebody who's in Slytherin. I kind of like the idea that he's throwing somebody off of the path of thinking that it's Snape that figured all this out. But at the same time, too, I mean, Snape is very intelligent, and I think he wants people to know that he's intelligent. So it is an interesting choice in name that he's embracing being a half-blood when in the past, Slytherins and in the future are known for being purebloods and touting being a pureblood. So it's definitely an interesting take on how you want to view your Slytherins.
I guess a little bit of the history on Snape's family with the half-blood thing. So apparently his mother was a pureblood witch. His father was a muggle. Half-blood. But we learned that, we learn through memories and stuff that the father was abusive. Snape did not grow up in a very good home. Either of his parents were not particularly great to him, but you get the abusive relationship, and there's a lot going on there. He takes his mother's maiden name here, Half-Blood Prince, which serves 2 purposes. Obviously, it denotes royalty, because Prince, right? That's where the trio is going to go with this, is like, oh, it's a designation of royalty, so it has to be a a man, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you also get that's the pure bloodline is Prince. So it's a little conflicting of a name too.
Yeah.
Half-blood and Prince, but Prince is a pure blood, so it's like, huh?
Mm-hmm. Well, the interesting thing too, now that I'm thinking about it, is Lily is Muggle-born, and obviously we know Snape is in love with Lily. Spoilers.
Yep.
So maybe there's some kind of tie with that as well.
I never honestly really thought of how much there really is tied into the Half-Blood Prince name, but there's so much twists and turns you can actually make with it.
Yeah.
It's
I may be stretching that, but
no, I mean, I think that might be part of it because he coins this term while he's in school. So I mean, he's already met Lily prior to Hogwarts, and obviously they continue that friendship in and through. So.
because I don't think that Snape is like a Muggle hater either, though, unless it just kind of plays at his emotions because his dad was abusive, but he's also in love with Lily, who is a very intelligent and great witch as a Muggle-born.
Yeah, I don't know. We never get indications that Snape is particularly anti-Muggle, even though him, maybe of any of the Death Eaters, maybe has the most reason to be.
Yeah.
Because if his Muggle father was an abuser to his witch mother,
Right.
you can see where he would develop a hatred towards Muggles via that process.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's Snape is actually a really fascinating character.
It really is. I mean, there's definitely some layers.
There's a lot of depth
Yeah.
that you got to kind of figure out.
Still think he's a bad teacher.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So him as the Half-Blood Prince. The other thing is, obviously, he wrote this in a school book. He wrote all of his instructions, his spells that we learn about, and all that kind of stuff. Two things on that. One, don't you think he would have wanted to keep this book? Like, I would assume he'd want to keep that near.
It's very interesting that it just happens to land into Harry's hands.
Did he not, like, I get it's in the potions room.
Right.
So did he just, like, leave it there when he left potions to go teach Defense Against the Dark Arts? Did he think that no one would ever come across it?
Yeah.
I don't know. But I would keep that, like, close. Like, that would be in my personal, like, study or even in my house. Like,
Right.
you know, that wouldn't be just in a classroom cupboard for any random student to come across.
Right. Well, I mean, like, I even keep a lot of my books that I've had in the
Same.
past with notes in them.
Mm-hmm. So that's one question that I have. The second question I have is, Slughorn proclaims that Harry is, like, one of the best he's ever seen, just like your mother, and blah, 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 blah. You know, all of that, like, hype that he gives Harry. Obviously, Slughorn taught Snape.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, Snape was figuring this stuff out at that time, so he might not have been the best potion student at the time. Maybe he got better at it through this. But I guess it's interesting that Snape he must really, like, actually really loved potions to put this much time into 3 times counter or clockwise and then 1 counterclockwise.
Ooh.
That's got to be a lot of time.
What about this, canon? What if, like, when Snape and Lily were hanging out, they were making potions together, and some of those instructions are Lily's? Is that too far of a stretch?
Oh, that they were, like, co-oping.
Yeah. Half-blood.
Maybe.
Prince.
You think, because Hermione notes that the writing looks a little female in nature. So, and we don't really have a sample of Lily's writing.
Mm-hmm.
So you're thinking it might be Lily's writing in the book?
That could be a possibility.
We now get Slughorn saying that Lily was a gifted potions maker.
Yeah.
So you think Lily was maybe helping Severus out in potions class?
Maybe. It's a possibility.
Little tutoring action?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. That would be an interesting kind of combo. I like that idea. So let us know if you think Lily was tutoring Severus in potions and helped write this book. An interesting thought. Obviously, this comes down to a point. It's one of the most dramatic lines, I think, in this book and in the movie when Snape does this reveal. Because obviously he sees Harry succeeding in potions, number one, which is like, really? How are you doing that? And he probably hears in the teacher's line, it's like, oh, Harry is so good in my potions class. He made the perfect potion today. And Snape's got to be like, no. Like,
well, maybe Snape has been doing, like, Snape doesn't realize that he's been, like, hindering Harry's abilities just like he was doing with Neville because he's just a big jerk teacher.
Even if Snape did think that, he'd be like, okay, I can understand Harry maybe being better. Like, he got his exceeds expectations.
Yeah.
But, like, perfection and Slughorn, like, gloating about how great he is, I'm sure Snape would be like, he ain't that good. And he can't be that good.
Maybe it's a wake-up call for Snape's teaching abilities.
Maybe. You are really hammering him today. You are hammering him.
I get that he's a very, like, gray character, and he's in depth, and he's fun to kind of pick apart, but I still don't like him.
Fair enough. Well, some of the spells that he creates that we're going to see are some questionable spells.
Yeah.
However, I want to say one was not one that he invented per se, but he copied from a certain father of a titular character that James used on him quite often. So it goes both ways. But
and I don't think Lily came up with that.
Okay. Fair enough. There's also this nonverbals spell that he starts off his year with does come back in big ways too. And as Hermione said, it stands to be good at them because they give you an advantage in dueling. And we see at the end that it does. It does indeed. Yeah. So, but yeah, do you have anything else for spoilers? No. Cool. We will end it here. We've given you a lot to think about in this episode. Let us know your thoughts on Snape teaching his Defense Against the Dark Arts lesson. Do you hate him as much as Mollie does? What do you think of Slughorn's first lesson and all of the different potions? What do you think about Amortentia and the smells and all of those fun things? Little details about the potions. You can hit us up with a comment on Spotify where you're listening to this. Also participate in the poll that you see that's going to be tied to the episode. You can also leave us comments on Twitter and Instagram at HogwartsAPod. You can find us, share the podcast, help us continue to grow. It's been awesome to see all this growth recently, so keep it coming. And we will be back next week, Chapter 10, one of Mollie's favorite chapters, The House of Gaunt. So we will be back next week with that. Have a good one. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Hogwarts, a podcast. If you like what you've heard, please click the subscribe button on your preferred podcasting app and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at HogwartsAPod.